Hello, divers! Coming to you from Studio D, this is the Deep Dive Microcast, a brief look into things that I find interesting, and I hope you do too. I'm Tom Feeney, raconteur, plastic surgery tester, and writer for Wang's Chop Movie Magazine. This edition of the Deep Dive Microcast goes pretty deep. It's about a film that was a unique hybrid of genres, something that had never been done before or since. A so-called lost film. Sadly, all we currently have from this movie are some still photos and music from the soundtrack. So what is this mysterious lost treasure? It's a 1966 film from India called Gogola. Why is it so highly sought after? Well, because it happens to be the only Bollywood monster movie. If you're unfamiliar with the term, Bollywood refers to films produced primarily in Mumbai, India. The term is a portmanteau of the words Bombay and Hollywood. Now, the Indian film industry is huge. This may be hard to fathom, but Bollywood far outpaces Hollywood when it comes to the sheer volume of films released. For example, in 2019, the year before COVID-19 pretty much shut down the world, the motion picture industry in the United States released a total of 792 feature films. Now, because of the pandemic, during the past 2 years, that number has been cut in half. By contrast, the Indian film industry released over 1,500 movies in 2019, nearly twice the output of movie studios in the US. In North America and much of Europe, movies are primarily a reflection of customs and culture. Those reflections can be pretty distorted at times, but we tend to see ourselves or versions of ourselves projected onto theater screens. In India, it's somewhat the opposite. It's the film industry that has influenced Indian culture. Bollywood movies would take Indian traditions and customs and, in the greatest Hollywood style, make them bigger, flashier, and more elaborate. This was especially true when it came to important cultural touchstones like fashion, music, and dance. Perhaps the greatest influence Bollywood films have had on Indian culture combines all three. Weddings. You can see this all over social media. Incredibly elaborate ceremonies, fantastic attire, beautiful music, and yes, impeccably choreographed dance numbers. Just do a YouTube search for Bollywood weddings and treat yourself to some eye-popping ceremonies. The country had been producing motion pictures since the early decades of the 20th century, when it was referred to as Hindustani cinema. It went through similar growing pains as Hollywood, trying different styles while still attempting to remain true to Indian audiences' tastes. In the 1960s, many Hindi filmmakers were getting tired of the same formulaic traditional structure of Indian movies. Some wanted to make more socially relevant films, others were embracing more escapist fantasies shot in glorious Technicolor. One particular filmmaker, however, was influenced by a series of movies that came from a country thousands of kilometers away and out of the depths of the Sea of Japan.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters. alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind.
Godzilla, king of the monsters. It's alive.
A gigantic beast,
Stalking the earth, crushing all before it.
in a cyclonic cavalcade of electrifying horror.
Raging through the streets on a rampage of total destruction.
Godzilla, king of the monsters,
Incredible titan of terror.
wiping out a city of 6 million in a holocaust of flame.
Jet planes cannot destroy it.
Bombs cannot kill it.
All modern weapons fail.
Is this the end of our civilization?
Can the scientists of the world find a way to stop this creature?
For the answer, see Godzilla, king of the monsters.
You may wish to deny it, but your eyes tell you it's true.
A tale to stun the mind.
More fantastic than any ever written by Jules Verne.
More terrifying than any ever shown on the screen.
Awesome.
Incredible.
Unbelievable.
A story beyond your wildest dreams.
Dynamic violence.
Savage action.
Spectacular thrills.
Godzilla, king of the monsters.
Fantastic beyond comprehension.
Gripping beyond compare.
Astounding beyond belief.
The mightiest monster of them all.
See Godzilla,
King of the monsters.
Yes, everyone's favorite 50-meter tall prehistoric sea monster with atomic breath and a penchant for destruction, Godzilla. Or, as pronounced in his country of origin, Gojira. Fun fact, the name Gojira is a combination of the Japanese words for gorilla and whale. That's much more elegant than a sharktopus or piranhaconda. By the mid-1960s, there have been numerous Godzilla films produced, including Godzilla Raids Again, King Kong vs. Godzilla, which deserves an episode all its own, and Mothra vs. Godzilla. Needless to say, these movies were international hits. You could say that giant monsters were huge. Other countries created, or more like ripped off, their own giant monster movies. China had The Mighty Peking Man. The UK had Gorgo. Denmark created Reptilicus. South Korea unleashed Yongari, Monster from the Deep. Even North Korea got into the game with Pulgasari, directed by a South Korean man who was kidnapped by leader Kim Jong-il just to direct the movie. True story. So, why not India? In 1966, a company called Indra Dhanush Films produced their own giant monster movie, the only one in the history of Bollywood, Gogolab. Now, I would absolutely love to tell you where to find this incredibly important film from India's rich history of cinema, but I can't. As I said before, Gogola is a lost film. As far as anyone knows, no print of the feature still exists. All we have are some still photographs, movie posters, and amazingly, music.
नाचो 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 गोगोला दिल वाला झुमुगा गोगोला नाचो 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 गोगोला दिल वाला झुमुगा गोगोला
Gogola.
It's kind of catchy. Even though the film itself seems to have evaded film archivists for now, we do know some things about this movie, including the plot. So, in the film, some happy-go-lucky beachgoers witness a man in a rubber suit, a giant sea monster, rising from the watery depths. It is Gogula. After dismissing the initial reports of a sea monster, like you would, the local constabulary enters the fray and makes a futile attempt to dispose of Gogula. And, as expected, it only serves to make an already grumpy behemoth even more perturbed. The monster destroys a few buildings, gets bored, and goes back into the sea. To quote the official press book, an enraged Gogula charges into the city, wreaking vengeance by destroying many public lives, buildings, and properties. So one of the original beach teens from the beginning of the movie has a father who's a scientist. He creates a poison which can destroy Gogula. Another of the beach teens, named Kumar, volunteers to dive below the sea and inject Gogula with the poison, but an evil rival devises a plan to kill Kumar and at the same time take credit for disposing of Gogula. Now, I never thought I'd say spoiler alert for a film that technically doesn't exist anymore, but here goes. Spoiler alert! In the end, the poison is injected into Gogula. But the monster kills the evil rival before Gogula himself succumbs to the poison. At least that's what is thought to have happened. Until a print of the film is hopefully unearthed one day, we just can't see for ourselves. If that day comes, though, I will make a fresh batch of popcorn, add some curry powder for a little taste of India, and enjoy watching a man in a rubber monster suit wreak havoc on a city made of balsa wood. Thanks for listening. If this is the first time you've heard this podcast, check out our past episodes and subscribe so you don't miss a single one. And we would love to hear from you. Drop us a line at the Deep Dive Podcast at gmail.com or on our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter feeds. You can find links to all of those and our merch store in the bio of our Instagram page. From all of us here at Studio D, which, again, is just me and my cat, stay safe and take care. All clips used in the Deep Dive Microcast are meant for educational purposes only and not to infringe on existing copyrights. The Deep Dive Lounge theme was arranged and performed by Robert Acorn and based on the original composition by Ryan Blaney. The Deep Dive Microcast is a production of Automaton Studios.
Go, go, la, go, la, go, la, go, la.